EGM Network.
All right, here we go. 75. That's 75. 75.
Broadcasting from the golden shores of Vero Beach, Florida, this is the Vero Beach Auction Podcast with your host, David Kratzer.
Hi, and thank you for joining us on our second podcast. I'm David Kratzer, and I'm here with my mom.
Hi, I'm Nancy Fitzgerald, and I'm glad to be here as well, David.
So thank you if you've watched our first podcast. We were really excited to, bring a lot of information and stories together in doing that. And here we are rolling into our second podcast. We got a lot of exciting things to talk about. It really is a lot of thought-provoking with doing this so long and all the things we have to talk about. But we also want to just highlight some really interesting things as we talked about before in the past, some different things about the auction and how it works, and just really go over a bunch of different things. And hopefully in the time we have, we can cross all the boxes and open it up to some questions. It's great that we have the support with our local business, especially in doing the podcast. We had a lot of great feedback on it. If you are watching, thank you for watching and being here. And if you have some questions or comments, please let us know. We'd love to hear what you're curious about and how we're doing and how we can, keep the podcast going and keep these questions and thoughts going for everyone. Also, I have to make a little shout out. If you haven't given us a review, we encourage you, if you have a minute, Google review or Facebook or something like that. It really goes a long way in building the trust within our community with Live Auctioneers, which is our online bidding platform. I think we have 780 or something reviews last time I checked, which is a ton. And so thank you for those people that have spent the time to do that. And again, if you're local and you have a good experience with us, please consider giving us a review. And if you had a bad experience, please let us know how we can remedy your your experience there. So we talked a little bit last time about the importance of auctions and how we're always, learning, especially in telling history and a lot of the items that we have. And, it seems like every auction that we do, we keep hearing these great stories, especially from the buyers. They'll buy something and they'll tell us a little bit about it. Or we talked about the importance of previewing. You do a great job of setting the floor up.
Yeah, I love staging the floor.
Yeah,
it's like changing your decor. Every few months. It's kind of fun.
Auction interior design there. So if you come and visit us at our address at 492 Old Dixie Highway, we do put a lot of thought into setting the floor up and staging it so it looks presentable. And that goes back to, our auctions are online only. We do offer other mediums to bid, whether it's an absentee bid directly with us, you save a little bit on the buyer's premium, or, some of the phone bidders, which we talked about before. We love phone bidders. We love the interaction that we still get with that. Probably one of the safest ways to bid is with that. Obviously with technology, there's some glitches, and even sometimes post-auction, we'll have people that were using the online bidding platforms, and we've heard this across the board with a lot of them. You might have a glitch or something happen. So I think the safest way is to bid directly through us. But if you want to bid live and you don't want to talk to us on the phone, by all means, Live Auctioneers is an efficient system, so not to deter you away from there. And then recently, we actually were talking to a few people that were wondering about the auctions that we did, and how, on the point of reviews and stuff is auction that you trust, and that we've had our auction almost 20 years, and just a little caution about some of the pop-up dealers. Just recently we had an advertisement. You had some at your home, but we had one at the auction with these pop-up hotel dealers or auctions or whatever they are. And oddly enough, you had reported one recently. I
reported a few, actually.
Yeah.
I live in Palm City, and they were coming into the communities, the gated communities, and the board had no idea that they were unlicensed people that sent out these brochures, and the HOAs trusted these auction houses that were really not auction houses. They were just sending flyers out, trying to solicit, people in the community.
Yeah.
And it was really not a good thing.
Well, especially in Florida, you have to be, licensed.
You have to be licensed.
We have an auction business license, we have an auctioneer's license, and, you can research that through the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation. A lot of industries are like that, where they're regulated and stuff. Sometimes, unfortunately, in the buying and selling industries, they're not always regulated. And I had a discussion online recently with someone about that. We were on Facebook, and there's a lot of these, questionable paintings that are surfacing, and at some of these pop-up auction houses. And I had a customer one time that had purchased a painting and brought it to me, and I looked at it, and I wasn't fully confident in who the artist was. And so I asked him, well, did you try calling or email? And he said, honestly, it was almost impossible to find a phone number or a way to contact. So you really got to be careful. And I think anytime you're buying something, it's important to do your homework of who and what you're buying, and all those things go in.
And who you're selling it to.
And who you're selling, exactly. Yeah. Again, I mentioned there's a lot of auction houses I follow that have been trusted and have been around a long time. And it's important to, trust who you are selling things to, and making sure you're doing right by the items you have. And then, some of the scary things we deal with now is AI. And recently the guy from NVIDIA was talking about using AI and either getting on board or not with it. And it's helpful in a lot of ways. Even asking questions, Google Lens could be helpful to identify certain things. Other times you might Google image a painting and it's telling you it's 5 different artists and it's totally incorrect.
I like someone that came in recently, and they did an AI search of a diamond, and so they were trying to tell us what the diamond was worth based on AI.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it gave a value of like 8,000 to 30,000.
30,000.
You can't compete with that. Yeah, you
have to look at the diamond. You can't,
right.
You can't do this through AI.
And AI said it's got the 4 C's that go with the diamond, right? But of course, you can't substitute that with the experience of a professional to do that.
Right.
And I had that. That was funny too. I had someone recently that sent me some paintings, and unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of value to the paintings. But their response was a little comical. It was, well, AI said they're worth, and AI is not buying paintings. So, you kind of have to detach a little bit from that. But there are a lot of ways to utilize it too, to your benefit. But, a lot of times when we talk about the value of things, what is something worth? There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of misinformation. Social media can be a dangerous place anymore because there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of confusing things. There's a lot of self-proclaimed experts or people that, might or might not be knowledgeable in certain areas. And, again, it goes back to just being careful who you're selling to. But, there's a lot of great people out there too that are really working hard to bring, good items to market. And we really like we've talked with our consigners, really representing them, not only the selling part, but the buying part too. We want our buyers to be repeat buyers, which we have a lot of, and our consigners to be happy at the end of the day. I mean, our goal is to really, benefit both parties. So with our podcast, a lot of what we wanted to talk about were a lot of the interesting stories we have, and the list goes on and on. But this particular podcast, we were going to talk about 2 really, really interesting items, but one of the most exciting finds that we ever had was a pre-Civil War 13-star American flag that came right out of Vero.
In River County.
And so we got the phone call originally.
He wanted to know if we could just take a look at the stuff he was having a estate sale, yard sale, whatever. Yeah. And he said, I may have some good stuff here. I really don't know what I have, but if you could just come take a look.
Yes.
And so we both went out, and he had the garage set up with glassware, and more glassware. And, trying to be kind. Yeah. I said, you're safe to sell it all at the yard sale. I don't really see a whole lot of value. And so he asked, what are you looking for? And I said, well,
what kind of stuff do you sell?
Interesting, rare, one of a kind. And so he said, would you be interested in a 13-star flag? And I looked at him, I said, like a real 13-star flag?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah. He said, it's an interesting story. I lived up in the Boston area, and my neighbor got really sick and had to move to assisted living. And he had this flag. And he said, I'm going to pass this on to you, and I want you to really take good care of it. And he said, so I've had it since then in a bag in my closet, and I'm afraid when I pass, my kids are going to toss this because it has holes in it. And they're going to look at it and go, it's an old piece of cloth, just toss it.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes it out. Me and David are like in shock.
Didn't expect that.
We're looking at this, David, going, holy cow. It's a real 13-star flag with bullet holes through it from actually pre-Civil War. We found out it was from the Boston area, pre-Civil War.
Yeah.
And
he was offered not very much money for it.
No, I think he was offered $100.
$100, yeah.
On a pre-sale. Somebody said, I'll give you $100. And so he asked me, what would you give me? And I said, I'll be honest with you, I really couldn't even make an offer. This is a very exciting piece of history.
Yeah.
Really needs to go to auction. Let the mass crowd decide what this flag is worth.
Yeah. So so we ended up bringing it to auction, and this is, I think, back in 2010 we had it.
I'd guess around there. Yeah.
Maybe 2011. So going on 14, 15 years ago. 16 years at this point. Back then we did Auction Zip, and we had our live crowd there. We had this old warehouse where we did the live auctions.
With a balcony.
Yep. And so, back to the point of connecting with the consigners is, here's someone that wanted our services to just verify what they had. And here we turn it into, here's this hidden gem that this gentleman had for a long time. And I think, and I'm pretty sure it ended up being a phone bidder that was winning because it was out of the state.
Right.
So we had it going back and forth. And so this fly that was offered for $100 ends up selling at auction for just about $6,000.
I think over $7,000 with the buyer's premium.
Yeah.
And that was before we did the internet.
Before we did the internet, yeah.
So it was just trying to do as much advertising as we could in print and media and things like that, because we didn't have the internet to do that.
Oh yeah, it's kind of might have been like a record for that kind of flag at that
well,
point.
And I remember the consignor, him and his wife were standing up in the balcony, and he said, "Oh my gosh, when the hammer went down," he said, "I almost fell over the balcony. I couldn't believe that I almost took the $100 offer."
Yeah.
He said, "I didn't know."
Well, and that's the challenge too. You have some of the rare, unusual items, and I've talked to people about this a lot. I said, bring it to auction. Put it in an auction, put it in a public auction, promote it, and see what happens with it. So here you have this unbelievable item that brings a great amount. Happy consigner, and the person that bought it, you could see on there is the Rare Flags. It was a flag museum and collector. And he was ecstatic to get it. And what was really interesting about the flag is there's that little kind of crooked star in the middle there. And from what we had understood, when it was sewn, they had kind of forgot, in doing the lines there.
States.
Yeah, they wanted to put the 13th star in there, and we were kind of going back and forth. So they ended up as an afterthought. Yeah. Which really tells part of the story. This isn't machine made; it's all handmade.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes mistakes are made. You're hand making items, and there's this fly that was an incredible piece that came right out of Vero Beach.
Right.
Pretty amazing. And, another transition to one of what we find exciting stories was that, we sell a lot of World War II memorabilia.
Mm-hmm.
World War II is a really interesting time. And we had a customer that had brought us an old storage locker.
It was his father's.
His father's storage locker.
His father's locker.
Yep. And, he asked us, do you guys sell military stuff? We said, yeah. So, brings this locker, been sitting around forever. And you had said, you sure you don't?
I know. I said, are you sure you don't want anything in here? And he said, no, I want nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. I said, because once it sells, it's gone. He said, no, I don't want anything in there.
So there's a longer story to that.
There is a longer story.
There's a very long, interesting story to that. We won't talk about that now because we don't have enough time, but I will put a link in the comments to almost the biography and story of the soldier who we got it from. But
that story was very interesting as we unfolded that.
Yes, very, very interesting.
On top of what we found in the trunk, the story.
I found recently. So the item that we're talking about was a Silver Star medal, which is a very high valor medal that is received through our military. And it was dated from October 28, 1944, right in the midst of World War II. kind of, I guess, towards the end there as Germany was starting to lose the war. But there's a letter that went with the Silver Star, and it depicts the battle, how he had captured some of the Germans, how he was wounded himself, and the hostile fighting. I mean, it's really an incredible story that we were able to have with that. We actually had his uniform as well and some photos of him. So the stuff we had from the locker was amazing. But I found recently in the article, I will attach a link to it in the comments, he actually had won or received 3 Silver Stars,
which is amazing,
from World War II. It's incredible.
Really incredible.
Yeah, it was really incredible. So we were really fortunate to have this, collection from really an important part of history, and what an amazing military career he had. And again,
a short career actually, because his life was taken.
Yeah, unfortunately, he had was deceased shortly after the war. Not war related, but
we'll want to hear that story. So you might want to click back on our on our site.
Well, and the other really great part about this story is that last year we had a relative of his reach out to us, and he had said, "I'm Johnny Barbo's grandson." And I noticed you guys sold a bunch of his memorabilia back in 2016, and I'm curious about getting it back. And so Johnny Barbo was from Texas, and left Texas and went to the war in Germany, enlisted, and unfortunately, as we mentioned, he had passed away shortly after the war. So he had this side of the family back in Texas that I don't think he really even knew about. I think he got his girlfriend pregnant or something, and so as the family kind of put the genealogy and stuff together, they realized, like, wow, this grandfather of this person in our family was a World War II hero and had this unbelievable medals, and there was photos and his uniform and all that. And I had done my best to try to piece back together some of the buyers, and unfortunately I wasn't able to connect, because again, and
it's been a while.
9 or 10 years, sometimes unfortunately phone numbers change, or people
emails change.
Emails
we really
change,
couldn't connect them.
Well, sometimes unfortunately we have great customers, and before you know it, you're like, I haven't heard from them in a while,
and they're not here anymore.
yeah unfortunately that does happen and stuff like that. But it was really interesting that he was able to find the stuff through our auction, and that we had sold it and everything. So even in selling, as we mentioned with some of the stories and stuff, we kind of pieced together his name, able to find it online. It was too bad we couldn't get to him before we ended up selling it, but again, in selling it, it was an amazing kind of discovery and everything through the auction. And I think that goes back to with what we're looking for. We are looking for those historical items that rare, that unusual,
that tell a story. Exactly.
Yeah, there's a story to be told through a lot of these items, and there's nothing better too than, some of our buyers. We've had this great collection of people over the years, and you go to their house and they're like, remember I bought that, or does that look familiar? And you do, and all these items have great stories, and they love to tell that as much as I do too. I have friends or family over the house, and sometimes I'll be really excited to show them some of the things that I've come across, through various auctions or our finds and stuff like that. That's a really fun part of the business. You do get a lot of hobbyists and enthusiasts, and in finding that story online yesterday about the 3 Silver Stars and whatnot, there was all these different forms of military collectors and hobbyists, and it is a fun passion for them, and a lot of times they use auctions to get a lot of these great items and connect them, and especially in dealing with specialists, I know there can be fake military items as well, so it's nice to have reputable sources that you can pinpoint and go through, and then you got to be careful with some of the stuff you hear too, because we just recently had a sword that sold really well, and it was 100% authentic, no question. And and I don't know why people do this, but we had someone message us that sword's not real. Well,
I think a lot of times that people will do that so that you step back a minute and go, is it real? And realize they're just trying to lead you to think it's not, when they're going to be the better on it. They're going to try to snatch it out and And that's, I think, exactly what happened on that one, because it was definitely a real sword.
Well, and you want to be trusting with people, but here's this sword, and it was funny because we had like 3 people come in person and look at it, and they're all interested in it, and they were talking about how authentic it was and everything, and then you get this random person online that's adamant this isn't real, and then I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, if it's not real, then no one's forcing you to bid on it, so I don't know why you're overly concerned with it, or it's funny because what are your credentials, right? Like, you're saying this isn't real, or you shouldn't put it in the auction. Well, can you give me some background on why you think, as opposed to like a blanket one sentence, thing? And I don't remember if I talked about it last time, but I had that recently with an auction house where I knew a painting they had wasn't real. And so I called them and I explained who I was and how long I've been doing this and what I specialize in. And I was just kind of bouncing some ideas off of why I didn't think this painting was real. And they ended up pulling it from the auction, and they were really thankful. And I think that goes back into our industry and community, is that with auctioneers and antique dealers and all that, they really, have a nice community of working together and benefiting each other. I think that there's a lot of great information you can spread around and really help each other. And really in any community industry, there's a lot of opportunities to really work together and gather some thoughts, help each other. What we're trying to do is eliminate fakes or questionable items from the market, whether it's paintings or swords or whatever. There's nothing worse than someone buying something that's not real. Again, it's those trusted sources that you do deal with. So going back to like the storage locker that we sold, which again was dropped off. The guy said, do whatever you want with it. I think we made 20 different lots out of all the stuff that was in there. There's medals and photographs and all that stuff. But I was joking about, the Staples button where you just hit the easy button, right?
We can have an auction easy button.
An auction easy button, yeah.
Make it easy.
So I think, auctions are really an efficient and effective way to sell your items, especially with our auction. We are on a worldwide catalog. I mean, we talked about all the different states we sell to, all different countries. I mean, there's probably a few outlier states, but I think we probably sold to just about every state.
I would say just about every state.
The years we've been doing that. Some states, obviously, you see a lot more buyers from. Maybe like a random, state, Hawaii.
And countries too. In the 20 years, different countries have surfaced and then dropped off.
That's right. Yeah.
Depending on what's going on in their country.
Yeah, you're right. Like Australia was buying a lot from us for a while.
Well, Canada was too. Canada definitely backed off.
Yeah, come back, Canada.
China was in too.
But yeah, you're right. China was buying a ton.
And Russia. It's really funny that we had.
That is interesting. I was thinking about all the Chinese buyers that we had. Yep. Yeah. I guess it depends on the items that we have too, but we even had containers going out. A lot of the stuff was being sent to these random addresses, and we're looking them up, and they were like shipping companies, freight companies
that they're creating it and sending it back.
Yeah, load up the crates and send them overseas. They'd buy all sorts. I mean, even furniture, jewelry. I mean, all sorts of stuff.
I think they bought a jute box they were sending outside the country. A Wurlitzer jute box.
Yeah,
that was wild.
Must have some kind of market for it there or something. Yeah.
Or they just don't see them like we do here.
That's true.
I mean, not that we see them all the time, but they probably don't see them at all except in the movies.
Exactly. Yeah, the nostalgia behind putting that piece back together.
They've got an American piece of history.
Yes. Yeah. And we have that for you.
Lots of it.
Yeah. And May 30th, we'll have more, which is our next auction. And then, again, go back to questions. We'd love the feedback from you guys. If you have some questions and comments, please share with us. One of the comments we had recently in our podcast was about something interesting that we sold in the last auction. And one of the things we had, had to sell or was sold was the Yukamitsu sword, which was a really high-end Japanese sword maker. And I think we had established a date of like 1300s on that. So to have something that old is pretty amazing, and how well made it was. And that sold for over $13,000. And something that I thought was really cool that we sold recently was the Pan Am Clipper cargo.
That was very cool.
Yeah.
Especially when you told me the story of how they were only in business for such a short period of time in the cargo in the cargo business.
Well, it was a really rare sign to find. I mean, you can have Pan Am memorabilia and stuff. We actually had on Pan Am a woman that used to be a flight attendant back in
that's right. We had her uniform.
I'm trying to think when that was, in the early 60s, maybe late 50s.
50s, I think it was.
If she's listening, she's like, no, it was definitely late 60s. But she had her original, or maybe that was TWA, excuse me. I think it was TWA. She had a TWA uniform from the flight attendant. And she said back then, which is like these stories that we come across, is that they would weigh the flight attendants before each flight. You had like a standard, and it was only women that were allowed to be flight attendants.
Right.
And they all had to wear the same nail polish color and maybe lipstick or something like that. But they were very strict standards, which is interesting now because, you have male flight attendants and, there's a little bit of freedom to maybe have a beard now, or I know it used to be frowned upon, back in the day, or, but back to that Pan Am Clipper cargo sign, you're right. They were the dedicated air freight service division of Pan Am. And so for several decades, especially in the 60s, it was the world's leading air cargo carrier. And so when we were researching that sign, there was not a lot to compare it to. I mean, it was a really rare, unusual sign. Sometimes you wonder where all this stuff goes. It reminds me of remember the World's Fair?
I was just going to say,
you were thinking the same thing I was.
The World's Fair panels.
In 1964.
They were massive panels that the man said when they destroyed disassembled the pavilion, they took them out and they were in the trash. And he said when nobody was looking, I think we had 3 of them.
I think he said the one guy said he turned a blind eye.
He said, I'm just going to turn around. And he had them for years and years and years when he finally sold them.
Yeah, so
they were very cool.
Yeah, it was like a 60 by 48, a large, and that was the space age in the 60s. So it was like a 1964 World's Fair pavilion panel.
Of the future.
And I think on the back it said like 4 of 13 or whatever. So there was this, these multiple panels that it's back on our sold records, but there was multiple panels, and for that pavilion, after it was done, they were supposed to be destroyed, not to be sold.
Right.
And that's why this guy said, I can't imagine this thing being destroyed. It's magnificent. And we actually, in telling that story, we had a dealer, that was previewing, and he's like, what is this thing? And I'm like, you got to buy this thing. It's incredible. He's like, well, what's the value? What is it? And I said, you couldn't find it, right?
Value it?
Yeah, it was like, but you got to buy this thing. It's really, really amazing, especially the space age and where it came from and all that. And the story of how he saved it from being destroyed. And it'd be amazing if you had the 13 to put together, but I think that was the last remaining one, because as he had told us, they were supposed to be, destroyed from that. Yeah. And then, another thing that we sold actually back in January was that Helen Frankenthaler print.
That was amazing.
That was absolutely amazing. Yeah, it came from a local estate.
Yep.
We received a bunch of artwork from that estate, and this was one of those really rare items that had a ton of interest at auction. And the hammer price sold for over $38,000. And I think based on what I was looking at, it's the highest sold print on Live Auctioneers, which is a record price. So really interesting to have that. Really interesting it was discovered through Vero. And, as we're talking about a few of these things, it really is amazing locally what we're able to, come across and come into. And
sell it to such broad audiences that truly will bring the most money for that item. Exactly,
yeah. Well, and some of these things are, they could be like museum quality pieces that we're fortunate of the ability to, connect the buyers and the sellers. The Frankenthaler came from an estate, and the family was out of town and asked us, can you help facilitate the sale? We don't know what to do or where to go with this stuff. And so in researching that, I thought it was good. It was a great piece, but the rarity of it and bringing it to auction, brought that really, really high value. And even some of the major auction houses had prints for $5,000 and $10,000. So to bring over $38,000 through our auction, kind of showcases what we're able to, do
accomplish,
for exactly the consigners and stuff. Well, as we're running out of time today, I have a whole bunch of other fun things that we could certainly talk about. But I hope you enjoyed listening to us today and some of these stories. We're really accumulating some more information. We're going to keep talking about auction stuff and some of the fun things going on, and we'll hope to keep you next time.
Yep. Thank you so much. And check us out, VeroBeachAuction.com.
Thanks.